A few months ago, I was in the kitchen. I was busy preparing lunch for the family, and as I like to do, I was listening to a podcast. I was just busy doing my stuff. At one point, though, I realized that I had heard something really important, and it made me pay closer attention. And so I decided to switch my focus from the veggies to the podcast. What had hijacked my attention was an interview with the founders of a new Silicon Valley startup. They were talking about their recent, very successful fundraising round and the goals of their company. Their vision was to automate all jobs through AI. Not just a couple of jobs, but all jobs. And that is what made me pay attention. Their version of the future that they want to help bring about. What they were talking about was a dream, a utopia of abundance, wealth, and unprecedented economic prosperity. And then the interviewer asked something really important. Is your mission ethical? Their answer? Yes, of course it is. And then he asked about what happens to people when they don't have jobs. What is happening in the transition? And what about those who will be left behind? Well, that was something they said we cannot think about today. Obviously, we have no clue what the world will look like when this is happening, but we think that this is the right way to go. Well, I do have questions. Not so much about their good intentions, but they clearly have not thought this through. To me, this attitude is difficult and also very typical of something I tend to observe quite often in a tech context. Ignorance paired with arrogance. Ignorance in the sense that they actually really have no idea of what matters to people, because they're so far removed from real life. And arrogance. These companies claim the right to decide the future of everyone else. And they also claim the right to decide the future for everyone else without any accountability, without any legitimacy to do so. And yet, this is the way tech is currently governing our world. Celebrating the capabilities of technology without considering how this technology will actually impact humanity. This is the AI race everyone is talking about. Yes, we are in a race, indeed. We are in a race where countries and companies are competing to lead what they are calling the AI revolution. Investment in AI is exploding. Valuations of AI companies are insane, and they don't even have to have a business plan or be profitable. The world is racing with a speed that we have never experienced before. Too many of us feel unable to keep up. But do we even know where this race is actually going? I'm afraid we don't. Do we even think one moment about where we're heading? Do we reflect on who is leading us there right now? Being fast is not necessarily the problem. Speed with no direction, or even worse, speeding in the wrong direction is. And I dare to say, in some of the most important metrics, we are actually moving backwards. We might be making progress in our race towards superintelligence. However, our capacity for human trust is collapsing. I've spent my entire career at the intersection of academia, policy, innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship. And I recognize patterns when I see them. Let me bring some numbers here. In 2025, direct global investment in AI was projected to reach approximately $244 billion, according to Goldman Sachs. New AI models drop every 3.4 months. On the other hand, less than 1% of investment goes to impact-driven AI, according to the World Economic Forum. And despite the fact that more and more people are using AI, half of the world's population does not trust this technology. In particular, they don't trust it when it comes to impact, positive impact on their lives, and to aspects of security. So what is happening is that we are racing into a future fast, but without clarity, without consensus, and increasingly without trust. Trust right now is collapsing everywhere we look. Trust between people, trust in institutions, trust in leaders, trust between countries, and trust in the technologies that we are creating in this race. Our tech leaders tell us that we have to go faster. But at the same time, many also say we should slow down. And then they admit that they cannot slow down because they do not trust anybody else to get it right. This is the trust me, not them moment we're living in. Each of them basically says, I'm the only one who can be trusted with developing all-powerful AI. And this leads us straight into the certainty trap that we're all in right now. So this is what it looks like. Certainty has become a performance. It's a narrative of confidence and knowledge, and it's something that masks a deep lack of clarity, and I would argue a lack of ethos, a lack of integrity, and a lack of responsibility. So here we are, listening to tech leaders telling us what the future will look like. And I mentioned this before, right? Abundance, economic prosperity, wealth, robots everywhere. And they do not only tell us what it will look like, but also what it should look like. A very narrow vision coming from a very narrow set of perspectives. However, shaping a future of true abundance for everyone, and not just a few, requires a much broader perspective and picture. It's a bit like cooking a meal, if you will. If you take the individual ingredients separately, they don't amount to much. The magic happens when you understand how to bring them together to create something new, something unique. And yes, technology is an important part of the cooking process, but it's clearly not the only one. If you just have the technology, you would have nothing to eat on the table. So, in order to help us cut through these curtains of uncertainty, I found the TRAP framework very helpful. So let me tell you more about it. TRAP stands for trust, relevance, attention, potential. Trust, relevance, attention, potential. To break that down, let's start with trust. We are racing towards some form of intelligence that we can't even properly define. And at this moment of profound uncertainty, our ability to trust one another is rapidly declining. We don't trust institutions, governments, or companies. We don't even trust each other. And importantly, we do not trust AI either, although more and more people are using it. As I said before, more than 50% of people worldwide say they are worried or afraid of trusting AI because of safety concerns or because they doubt its positive impact on their lives, their realities, or society as a whole. But if humans cannot collaborate and build guardrails rooted in shared values, why do we even think that our machines will behave differently? We are racing ahead because we hope or we are led to believe that, this is what needs to happen. It's for the best. And to me, that is the foundation of the certainty trap. So, R stands for relevance. What matters really? What is important? And what should we prioritize? Right now, a very small group of people is defining what the future for all of us should be. And right now, we allow them to do this. And it looks like we allow them to continue to do this. We allow them to be our voice, determining what our future should be. We're being sold the narrative of an inevitable AI future. And we're told that the quest for superintelligence, for general artificial intelligence, it's what's most important these days. Everything else will magically follow. What we've done is we've stopped asking the important questions. What problems are actually worth solving? Who decides what is relevant? And who benefits from these decisions? Who do we give the mandate to design our future? Let me remind us of the purpose of technology, not just AI, any technology. The purpose of technology is to make life better for people, genuinely better. but we've drifted from this. This is no longer the focus. I am convinced that AI has amazing potential to help us address some of our biggest and most pressing challenges. I know it for a fact because I work with entrepreneurs doing exactly that in health, climate, education, and many more. However, impact-driven AI receives less than 1% of overall investment. At the same time, the better is bigger idea has become the dominant narrative. More data, more compute, more power. But technology alone is never a solution. It was never a solution. Scale does not mean relevance. Relevance requires values, and relevance also requires prioritization and consideration. So, this brings us to A, attention. In an era of deep uncertainty, and this is what we are actually in right now, we reward loudness, speed, and certainty. That's not new. But AI is not something anyone should be certain about. AI is unlike any other technology we've seen. It's poised to change the very fabric of our societies. So I'd argue that in the age of AI, it's not hesitation that's dangerous, it's actually certainty in the face of the unknowable. Right now, we are paying attention to people who say, let's just do it. We should be paying at least as much attention to the people who dare to ask, should we do it? And if so, what's the best way? Attention to the people who say, let's work it out together. Attention to the ones brave enough to say, I have no idea, but let's make it work together, responsibly, thoughtfully, and inclusively. And that's the kind of leadership, that's the kind of confidence that might actually deserve our trust. That is what we need in terms of leadership. You might have heard about the fact that 95% of deployed AI does not deliver on its promise. That's not despite what many might tell you. It's not because the technology is bad or because leaders aren't fast enough in adopting it. No, it's because AI adoption is a human issue, not a software rollout. Getting it right requires leaders with human skills. Let me bring in another dynamic here that I think is really important. Women, half of the world's population, consistently show more hesitation when it comes to AI. They tend to use it less, but more importantly, they express more concerns about its ethical and societal implications. Contrary to what the dominant narrative tells us, this is not risk aversion. It is actually risk awareness. And to me, this is precisely the shift in perspective that we need to discuss in today's times of profound uncertainty. We should all be asking the hard questions. Who is excluded? Who is included? What are the consequences? How will this change what we live? That is leadership. It's just not the kind of leadership that performs and portrays certainty. And this brings me to P, potential. If we rebuild trust, if we redefine what is relevant, if we redirect our attention, AI still holds enormous potential. But what is crucial is that we're not giving away agency. We do not allow others to dominate the narrative. Human judgment, our own personal judgment, must remain at the center. The leadership that we need right now is the one brave enough to admit uncertainty, brave enough to admit that not everything is clear and that this moment is a fragile one. Leadership that embraces collaboration. So this is what I would argue for. This is what we need today. I call it shared stewardship. This is the only way we will be able to move forward in this age of AI in a way that is actually leading us to a future that will be working for all of us and not just a few. And so what shared stewardship entails is collective responsibility. It's slower, but wiser, more thoughtful decision-making. It's collaborative thinking and collaborative action. Shared stewardship is the precise opposite of moving fast and breaking things. We have seen what this kind of thinking creates. It creates systemic harm, misinformation, it erodes our democratic norms and our social fabric. And it actually undermines trust. Shared stewardship is the antidote we need. So here is something interesting that happens when you put trap in front of a mirror. We are actually getting part. P-A-R-T. And what part stands for me, is purpose, agency, responsibility, and yes, still trust. This is the framework of shared stewardship. Purpose reminds us why we build technology at all and what we want it to help us with. This goes beyond AI. Agency ensures that we never outsource our judgment and that we understand that we have the power to play a role. Responsibility asks us to think beyond convenience and profit, but also to say yes to taking on the role that we have to play. It's actually our job. It's not something we can outsource and then complain about afterwards. And trust. Yes, trust has to be earned, re-earned, maintained, and protected. Because what is humanity going to be without trust? So, this moment calls for participation, not passive observation, not blind certainty. It calls on us to play our part in understanding what's happening, to uphold what we care about, to propose concrete alternatives. Not to wait, but to act. We want to be more than just the audience of our story. If we want to be a part of this story, we must shape it, because that's what the future requires all of us to do. This short window is still open. The future of AI and technology and us, our society, and our civilization remains unwritten, despite what the headlines might suggest. But this window will certainly close soon. This is not a time to be passive. Every one of us has their part to play. So I invite you to take it on, wholeheartedly. Thank you.